What is up, everybody? Hope you all had a great weekend. And now it is time for a big MLB DFS slate to get us started here. And this is going to be the final week of baseball prior to the start of football. So while baseball shows are still going to be continuing, I'm sure you guys are aware. We've got football starting next week. There is, by the way, a deal going on here over at Stokastic. If you guys do sign up for our football package ahead of NFL Week 1 and you sign up for the yearly package, get yourself 10% off when you use the promo code BIRD. So get the entire season of NFL DFS Sims, any package of your choosing. And by the way, that could be just the NFL yearly package. It could be any of the all access yearly packages. So anything that includes NFL, the yearly packages, 10% off with promo code BIRD. So that's going to be a good deal for yourself. And Eric, some baseball for today. How was your weekend?
Yeah, weekend was pretty darn good. Got my my home league fantasy league in for the weekend, so that was fun on Sunday night yesterday. Ready to rock, ready to roll. Obviously, already looking ahead to the DFS slate for week 1 as well. So just started piecing together some of my NFL stuff today because we started to get lines. We have an idea of where some NFL numbers are going to be for the first time. So I was updating my spreadsheets here, on top of doing a bunch of other content, a couple of other meetings. It's overall been a really, really good day, but I'm just excited to dig into this MLB slate because we've got aces, we've got stacks, we don't have Coors Field. I mean, all the things that I absolutely enjoy about life.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the football content that's going to be kicking off next week as well. So let's get into it here, Eric. We've got a couple of good-looking pitchers on the high end for today. Here's what the overall chalk is looking like at pitcher on DraftKings. And, of course, talk about FanDuel after this as well, though pretty often, especially on big slates, the DraftKings and FanDuel conversations kind of overlap a good deal. But on DraftKings, we've got Tarik Skubal and Jacob deGrom, both just under 40%. And actually, in our ownership projections, both of them 38.6% owned exactly. So they're pulling the exact same amount of ownership. Then there's a really, really big drop-off. You got Max Scherzer 17% owned, Brandon Woodruff is 11% owned, Jose Soriano's 11% owned, and everybody else is single-digit owned. So we're looking at a really chalky Skubal and deGrom, and then it's kind of everybody else on the entire slate. And also, Skubal now, because of a little bit of a downtick in his performance in the second half of the year, and Garrett Crochet pitching out of his mind, that is now a pickup for the AL Cy Young, Eric. You got, last I looked, minus 110 for both of them to win the Cy Young. And Skubal today has not ideal matchup, at least in terms of the park factors. He's going to be on the road in Sacramento, pitching against the A's there. Then you got Brandon Woodruff, the other pitchers, 10K plus at home, pitching against the Diamondbacks. What do you make of Skubal as the most popular pitcher on this slate, or tied as the most popular pitcher on this slate at this price, and then also pitching in this ballpark?
Yeah, it's obviously a ballpark we've talked about a lot this season because, from the jump, I'm basically we're going to be looking at homers being a big part of the story here and in Tampa Bay, and that's definitely come to fruition. I still think it's warranted for what it's worth. We're talking about a guy with a nearly 6 WAR going out there pitching on a day in, day out basis, or, every 5-6 days. And despite, as you said, some downtick in performance, I think there's probably something to be said about having seen him as many times as what some of these teams had. I mean, my Minnesota Twins, they just started swinging really, really early in counts against Tarik Skubal, and it allowed for him to go 7 innings, but, gave up the 3 earned runs along the way. There was a big deal that they ended up going into depth about Byron Buxton swinging at first pitches, and that Tarik Skubal loves to throw first pitch fastballs. And that's kind of this is just like a match made in heaven kind of a deal. And it was the very first time Tarik Skubal got ahead in a count to a leadoff hitter with a changeup all season long, which I thought was pretty funny. But the whole point of this is that he ends up taking on a Philly team in a Sunday Night Baseball, looked ridiculous. Him and Christopher Sanchez dueled. Then he took on an Angels team, which I think was the ultimate outlier. I mean, the 4 earned there. There is some power that exists in that Angels lineup. It was good hitting weather, but it's such a small sample size to extrapolate and look at the last 4. As far as velocity goes, I don't see any issues with it. I bet Shane Langoliers did a homer, and that's purely just price and probability more than anything. It's got to be Tarik Skubal. If you're looking at one pitcher to have an overweight stance to, I know that salary is a thing and that we're going to talk about Jacob deGrom and his ownership, but I've been a proponent of just getting to the top end with some of these pitchers. Has it burned me at times? Sure, but I really think Tarek Skubal is one of those guys that his strikeout prop day in, day out, Greg. It's just hard to deny in this kind of a spot, and you have strikeouts available.
Yeah, and it's funny because here's what a downtick in performance looks like for Skubal. Second half of the season, 2.72 FIP, 2.72 xFIP as well, with a 32% strikeout rate. In August, 3.58 FIP, 2.98 xFIP, 29% strikeout rate. You're still looking at a guy who's been ridiculously good. It's just he was a guy who, in the early portions of the season, was like right around the 2 ERA. So it is a little bit of a downtick in performance, but it's like the guy goes from being a 10 out of 10 to like a 9.5 out of 10. So I do think that the ownership makes sense. One thing that I feel a little bit differently with you on, though, is if I'm going to be rostering just one of the chalk pitchers, I like DeGrom a little bit more than I like Skubal. You got DeGrom pitching at home against the Angels compared to Skubal pitching on the road in Sacramento in that tiny minor league ballpark. So I feel much better about the matchup for Jacob DeGrom, but Skubal's still my second overall favorite pitcher on the slate.
Yeah, I'm just having a tough time figuring out exactly what to make of Jacob DeGrom and where this drop in strikeout rate to righties went. It's existed a little bit in 2024, but in 2025, he has just a 24% K rate against righties. And I say just knowing that that's above league average, but just relative to Jacob DeGrom standards, he's at a 30.5% K rate against lefties. He's just been nonstop getting the strikeouts. Now, we know how good he is at preventing power against righties. He's always been good at that. That's always been his calling card going back to the Mets days. He has a 280x WOBA, 245 actual WOBA against righties. That's ridiculous, but this is DFS. We need strikeouts to come along for the ride, and I don't know what to make of it entirely. Again, it's not like there's zero strikeouts available, and the ones that are available here are plentiful, which is why they have this highest strikeout rate in baseball against righties. The Angels do, but I'm not sure what to make of that. There's just so many of these outings where I roster a ton of Jacob DeGrom, and then I watch the beginning of it, and I'm like, he's not going to strike out anybody. I've said that like multiple times this year, and I get it. Like the Sims are getting to you a ton of him, 68% on your screen, 60% for Skubal. So it's, a little tick for tat, but I have a little bit more Skubal at the moment. Probably going to roll out around 55, 60% Skubal when it's all said and done. I'm probably going to end up somewhere close with Jacob DeGrom, but as of right now, it's just a little bit less.
Fair enough. And then if we're looking to pivot off of Skubal on the high end, one thing is if you have the adequate salary, you're probably just rostering him because I don't know what to make of Brandon Woodruff's pitch counts. You and I have had this conversation a handful of times in the second half of the season as well. You look at the recent starts for Woodruff. Well, he did get up to 94 pitches in his last start. He only went 4 1/3 innings. And then you get the start before that. They take him out after 4 innings and 65 pitches. So it's just kind of all over the place with his pitch count. It is so unpredictable as well. There's so many good aces on this slate that Brandon Woodruff just kind of falls by the wayside for me. And I'd rather target some of the upside of these other pitchers instead, like Skubal, DeGrom, and then we'll also talk about the other pitchers in the 9K range. So we've hit on DeGrom already as a chalk option. Is there anything else that stands out to you in the 9K range, Eric? Because once you get past DeGrom and Skubal, there's modest ownership on everybody. Christopher Sanchez, he's been unbelievable. He's 9% on. You got Joe Ryan, 5% on. Hunter Green is 8% on. We know he's got strikeout upside. Brutally tough matchup for him on the road in Los Angeles against the Dodgers, though. So outside of DeGrom, do you have a preferred contrarian option in the 9K range?
Yeah, contrarian option for 9K would be Hunter Green for sure, just because of the strikeouts. But Christopher Sanchez has been my boy kind of this entire year with his over odds prop, and Brandon Woodruff's kind of been the inverse lately, ended up cashing that under outs for him. I'm on it again today. Partially like the Brandon Woodruff thing is hard. I think it's less hard in this spot purely because you have Arizona that just dominates right-handed pitching. Like they have been all season long, 115 WRC plus. And then you add in the equation that they have 2 lefties that are fully available that are going to be in Jared Koenig and Aaron Ashby. And McGill blew his second straight save, and he pitched 34 pitches in Uribe 26. I think this is one of those spots where it just sets up to do exactly what they want to do with Woodruff. Limit him through 5 innings, and then turn it over to the lefties here and Koenig and Ashby and let them eat up a lot of innings. I mean, if they need Nick Mears, if they need Shelby Miller, those are guys that they've rolled out probably too much at times. They ended up switching out and getting Tobias Myers back there from AAA and sending down whomever it was that was there. Rodriguez, I think, was the other guy. He's had a couple of brutal outings himself recently, if you've watched those games or bet on Milwaukee. But my whole point is that Skubal and DeGrom are on an island. Like, they're so much better in terms of strikeout projection, and I feel far more comfortable with their outs than I do a Woodruff. I think Christopher Sanchez is great, but 5.5K prop, 6.5K prop, probably not going to be my favorite against a Mets team in good hitting weather in New York. And Hunter Green, he just has the kind of strikeout stuff, but he is by far the most difficult matchup out of anybody. I think that kind of does it. Hunter Green's one of those guys who could have 9-10 strikeouts, but give up 3 or 4 earned runs in this kind of a spot.
Yeah, Hunter Green and Christopher Sanchez at their ownership, they both interest me a little bit. I do prefer Hunter Green, though. You're getting him at a cheaper price point, and then also carries more strikeout upside than Christopher Sanchez. As great as Sanchez has been this year, and he has upped his strikeout stuff in a significant way, he is a 26% strikeout rate compared to a 32% strikeout rate for Hunter Green. So Hunter Green is as elite as strikeout pitchers go, but still would want to tread carefully just because of that matchup on the road against the Dodgers. And then also he does have a propensity to occasionally get blown up and give a bunch of homers. He's got an above league average homer and a fly ball rate. He also only has a 28% ground ball rate. So that is something that presents issues for him at times. So I don't necessarily love Sanchez or Green, but I think they're decent options if you're looking for a contrarian guy to be looking to at those price points. If we get into the 8K range, we've got Noah Cameron at $8,700. He's 4% owned. Max Scherzer at $8,300. He's 17% owned. And then Kodai Senga, 5% owned at 8K. He's kind of struggled to consistently get going this year. Injury's been a massive issue for him this year as well as last year. Are you surprised how popular Max Scherzer is at $8,300?
Yes and no. I think people are doing a pretty bad job of analyzing my Minnesota Twins lineup on a day in, day out basis for what it's worth. Like, there is so much changeover and there's so much that can fluctuate. Like, Matt Wallner not even in a lineup. Now you have Wallner and you have Cody Clemens, whose strikeout rate has started to rise up. Like, I think this is very appropriate for Max Scherzer to be showing up in this amount of lineups. I mean, we have a Yankees team that's pretty chalked today that I think is in an undeniably good spot, in undeniably good hitting weather. They tend to hit a lot of home runs. And there's Max Scherzer at 8,300 against a Twins team. This is probably the most strikeout heavy version of the Twins lineup that we've seen in quite some time. Luke Keeschel getting a day off, so that's useful for Max Scherzer. You don't get Mickey Gasper in there, but you get Ryan Jeffers kind of middle of the road there rather than like up in the 2 or 3 hole. Like, with Wallner and Clemens both in there, there is definitely a chance where Max Scherzer could give up some long balls. 10.8% barrel percentage now for him on the season is much higher than you would want if you're a fly ball pitcher, specifically an older Max Scherzer. But I think it's probably warranted what we're looking at for the ownership. I don't want to go near 5.5, 6.5 at the numbers that I'm looking at for books, but from a betting perspective. But for DFS today, there's no doubt in my mind that Max Scherzer is probably the best 7 or 8K option that we have by far.
I like him better than the other options. I don't know that I like him quite as much as the field does, though. He's been adequate this year, 3.6 ERA, 3.9 expected ERA. Strikeout rate a little bit lower than what we typically see from Scherzer at 23%. He has been priced down, obviously, from what we see in the past from him. And like if somebody rostered him over Noah Cameron or Kodai Senga, I think that's completely reasonable. But there are other pitchers I like taking shots on for cheaper price points that have considerably lower ownership than Scherzer. So I don't think he's an issue to be rostering at 17%. I just like some other guys either comparably or maybe even a little bit more at lower ownership.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, what do you think about Cam Schlittler? Because this is the guy that we end up talking about nonstop. It's a fastball heavy situation, but I don't know. It feels like with Wood and Abrams and Garcia and Bell up top, I mean, you're just getting 4 guys that, generally strike out a lot, but they don't strike out against righty fastballs very much. And that's all that Schlittler's really bringing to the table right now. And I thought it was an interesting pick'em spot, just purely from a market-based perspective at 5.5, but I'm just curious what you think about him specifically, because like this feels so feast or famine for him.
Yeah, he's one of the guys I prefer to Scherzer. He's $600 cheaper. He's got half the ownership. And at this point in their careers, I think he has more upside than Scherzer as well. So to your point, is he feast or famine? Absolutely. So his last start, he was super low owned. I liked him in that spot, and he nearly pitched a perfect game. He was perfect in the 7th inning or something like that.
Yep.
Ended up having the best start of his young career to that point. So there's going to be starts where he just simply struggles to find the strike zone, but still, he's got a 3.22 ERA, a 3.9 expected ERA, a 25% strikeout rate. So kind of across the board, all of his underlying metrics are better than Scherzer's. And then on top of it, he's got a reasonably decent matchup here against the Washington Nationals. So I like the upside of Cam Schlittler, getting that half the ownership of Scherzer. You're saving yourself $600. So he is one of the contrarian options who I like getting to and pivoting off of Scherzer too.
Okay. Yeah. I was curious what you thought about him specifically, just because I think there's definitely some love I have there, but Emmett Sheehan, man, I'm going to just die by this guy. It seems like every single time out until people assess the fact that he has like a 25.5% K rate. So better than Schlittler. He's got a Cincinnati matchup that, yeah, it's 100 degrees outside for what it's worth. It's not fun to be out there pitching, I'm sure, in this kind of an environment, but this is a lineup in Cincinnati that is not all that imposing. And, you go piece by piece on who they ended up rolling out today. You don't get the love of having a Stevenson in there. Jose Trevino's catching, but 1 through 6, there's still some strikeouts available to you there. And I just think he's got some really, really good stuff. So Emmett Sheehan, he was the piggyback once upon a time there for Shohei, and he was so good, undeniably good. And now getting some opportunities to branch out and do his own thing. Hopefully he can keep it going, but he's kind of the guy I prefer to take some shots on. But I definitely wanted to hear Cam Schlittler, because I was early to the party on it, and then I wasn't on the party when I needed to be on the party. So I just want to party, Greg.
Just want to party. One thing I'm kind of curious to see, it's all small sample sizes, but what is the difference in strikeout rate for Sheehan as a starter versus a reliever this year?
It's a great question, but he also was doing 4 innings of piggyback work. So it wasn't like a reliever role where he was going, 1 inning, 2 innings here and there.
It was more
same,
of like, by the way, it's no different.
Say that again.
It's pretty much the same. It's no different.
Okay. Yeah. He is identical splits to lefties and righties. I know that was kind of the thing last night where, you're piecing together what happens with Friedel, who's pretty strikeout immune, what happens with Marte, who's pretty strikeout immune up there. But at least Marte is going to strike out more against a righty up there, and that's useful. But it's just one of those spots where I think Sheehan's just has really, really good stuff. I think his changeup against lefties should have a higher swinging strike rate than it does, just at 11.8% it is at the moment. It's the slider that's doing absolutely everything against both sides. And that was the pitch that was his calling card coming up. And, I like Emmett Sheehan a lot. He's a big dude, like surprisingly big. But, you watch him pitch, and I think he's going to mow down everybody. And sometimes it just doesn't come to fruition in the same way. But yeah, 25%, 26% K rate isn't nothing against both sides of the plate.
Shout out to Malukar, who gifted 5 YouTube memberships. Malukar, thank you for supporting the channel. For anybody else who wants to support us, just like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or sign up for any of the packages that we have here at Stokastic. Link to sign up is down below in the YouTube description box. And of course, any of those packages you sign up for do come with access to our Discord channel, where you could ask us questions throughout the day or on a show that we could answer on the show. So by the way, if you are watching here in Discord, you have questions, hit me up so I could check those out. In the 7K range, Eric, is there anybody else that stands out to you? Well, actually, we've talked about, there's only 3 pitchers. The only other one is Bryce Miller, and I'm not
thank you,
Bryce Miller today.
No, thank you. Why is he 7? Why is he 7K? Just because he's in Seattle? Like, why is he actively 7K here?
I don't know. What should his fair price be?
Like 5,500 based on what I'm looking at. This guy is so bad, and San Diego does not strike out, and there's just no reason he should be 7K. This is just silly.
He was really good last year, but yeah, this year has been a train wreck for him. 5.87 ERA, 5.63 expected ERA. Strikeouts have fallen off the table, so yeah, I don't have interest in him really at all to roster. I like the other guys in the 7K range better. Punt options, the only guy pulling ownership in a meaningful way, sub 7K, you got Jose Soriano, 11% owned on the road against Texas. The real reason, though, that Soriano is pulling any kind of ownership is where you said that Bryce Miller at 7K might be a little bit overpriced. Soriano, it's not like I love him as a pitcher of the matchup. He's just kind of a mediocre pitcher who's too cheap. He's $5,700 today. So if you want to punt, he's the one who makes the most sense just because the price tag is so ridiculous on him. But what thoughts do you have on Jose Soriano or any of the other punt options tonight?
Yeah, he's not my favorite of the punts. And again, there's only one guy that I'm getting any kind of ownership to whatsoever down here. So there's that. McGreevy, I guess you could take some shots on. Soriano, it's a good ballpark. He's getting the ground balls. He can spike strikeouts from time to time. But boy, does it feel as though you're just... If the home runs are starting to become a thing for Soriano, like his superpower is ground balls, and those are not ground balls. So it's very tough for me to look at Soriano and be like, oh, I want to play him at double-digit ownership a ton. If you want to get to a little bit, fine. Not a lot, baby girl, just a little bit. But what do you think about Johan Oviedo? Because if this guy gets up to like 85, 90 pitches now, he has actual strikeout stuff. He is got revenge in his heart taking on St. Louis. I don't care about that. But like, Johan Oviedo is 6,700 pulling like zero ownership whatsoever. Like, I don't even think he's on your screen right now. And he had 75 pitches. That was 4 games ago, but he had been stretched out a little bit in AAA Indianapolis and got to a point where like they wanted to bring him in and see what they've got. This is kind of what you see happen this time of year. They did it with Michael King in New York 2 years ago. They're doing it with Johan Oviedo, where it's like, hey, if we can lengthen this guy out and the stuff kind of remains intact, we might have ourselves a gem. And that's what the Yankees found until they couldn't re-sign him after that fact, because the San Diego Padres are like, please, we'll take him. But I think Johan Oviedo has that kind of good stuff. It hasn't really shown up in terms of like his run prevention at the big leagues. But what do you think about him against St. Louis? Because there's a really good chance that he could rack up 6-7 strikeouts without Brendan Donovan in the lineup. You don't get Pogo in the lineup. It's Pages catching again back-to-back. I just think it's a really weak St. Louis lineup that they rolled out.
Yeah, so I did bet him over 4.5 strikeouts at plus 115 this morning. Ooh. I think the number was, maybe it was plus, it was either plus 110 or plus 115. So I do have a bet on him. As far as his minor league numbers go, they were solid. He generated a ton of strikeouts in, once again, small sample size in the minor leagues, but in that small sample size, I mean, the strikeout rate, it was 35% in the MLB. It was 40% in AAA. Now he gets called up to the big leagues, and once again, small sample size, 33% strikeout rate. But everything we've seen from him this year has been a guy who, coming back from injury, has generated a ton of strikeouts. And then also, you wonder, all right, coming back from injury, what's his velocity looking like? Down a little bit, but he's still throwing 95 miles per hour. His average fastball velocity was 96 prior to the injury. But considering the price point, I'm okay taking shots on him. Kind of the same sort of reason that I said, I bet him over 4.5 strikeouts at plus money earlier today as well.
Okay, nice. It's just weird because, I mean, I was getting absolutely zero of them. And I get it. If you're going to project him for like 75 pitches today, you shouldn't play him. But like, I project him for more than 75 pitches, and he's got a 33% K rate in 2 starts. It's nothing to besmirch by any means, or it's nothing to also make the Bible because it's 2 freaking starts in a baseball season. But the stuff looks good in AAA. The slider looks really good. Tiny bit of dip in the velocity, as you brought up. But I like this version of the St. Louis lineup, and I think there is a lot of upside that nobody is recognizing with him.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, if you compile all of his numbers overall for the season, if you look at the major leagues in every single level of the minor league, because he pitched at every level of the minor leagues that ramped him up. I mean, he pitched in the CPX, he pitched in A-ball, he pitched in AA, pitched in AAA. So if you add up all of those starts, you do end up getting to 18 starts for him with a strikeout rate over 30% for the year. The point being here is he the most reliable pitcher on the slate? No, not really, but I think there's strikeout upside there. It's in a lot of ways kind of a similar conversation what we said about Cam Schlittler. It's what does the best case scenario for these guys look like? And it's pretty clearly substantial upside. So I like Oviedo for cheap as well, relative to what his ownership is. We've got him at 4% at $6,700. So I think that's somebody to consider. Any other punts that you like at all?
No, I mean, JT Ginn had 9 strikeouts once upon a time. It's got to be one of the bigger outlier numbers that we've seen in forever. It was in Baltimore. It made me want to rip my hair out. I'm pretty sure I had Gunnar Henderson, Colton Cowser home runs. Nothing good happened in that entire game. But JT Ginn must pay for his sins. So you're definitely looking at the Detroit side a little bit more. I don't think I'm going to end up rolling him out in 40 lineups, but Jose Soriano's pulling all the ownership there. I want to strip some of that away and get to about equal, 10, 15% of him, Oviedo. Good stuff overall.
Yeah, and look, hey, Kyle Krings in the chat says Oviedo won him his first ever GPP. Look at that. He's won at least one per. Must have been a minute ago because it stands to reason that probably wasn't this year. It was
he can't even win his team a baseball game. So he's done more for you. So that's cool. Had to be with St. Louis back in the day.
Could be. Yeah, back in
2023, didn't pitch in 24.
Wasn't he on Pittsburgh in 2023, though?
It was like 21 or 22. He was on St. Louis. So, I mean, it could have been a while ago, St. Louis, but he was more of a bullpen arm then. And yeah, it would have had to have been Pittsburgh like 2022 because they were the only ones who I think made him a starter at any point.
Yeah, I'm curious. Kyle, let us know what year was it? Because now we're going to go back through your history, try to figure out who else may have been in that lineup.
He said it's with Pittsburgh. See, look at that. Hell yes. I was going to say double dong from Anthony Santander. I forgot that he existed until today when I was like, is he ever coming back? It doesn't appear so.
Yeah, he was. Didn't he get signed for a lot of money in the offseason too?
A shit ton of money. I mean, I think he was a 40 home run guy last year with Baltimore.
Yeah, 5 years, $92 million.
Oh, that can't feel good.
And overall, all right, what would you guess his WRC plus is for the year?
Well, whenever you ask me this, I immediately go to single digits. So
I have no clue what the answer is, though. I haven't looked at it
okay,
yet.
I'll say 12 then.
Marginally higher than that 63, but that's 63 WRC plus. Negative 0.9 wins above replacement. That is not what you want to see from your $93 million investment. He wasn't even that good last year, by the way. So he hit a lot of home runs last year, but he didn't really do much else. It's not like he was bad or anything, but
yeah,
he was 29 years old with a 3.1 wins above replacement. That was his big breakout season. He's got multiple seasons, assuming that the season doesn't end up being positive for him, which there's no reason to think it is. This will be the 4th season of his career with negative wins above replacement.
Dear God. I mean, I already started doing my breakdown for tomorrow. That's kind of like the calling card of my afternoons, is working on the next day's games before I talk about the games that I've talked about from the last night and the morning. But here we are. Bailey Ober's on the mound tomorrow, and Dalton Varsho is popping like a mother effort for tomorrow. And Dalton Varsho is much better and has defensive utility and steals bags and has power. And they went out and gave all that money to Santander. I'm pretty sure they would want to give it to Varsho if they could right now and have him locked in at $15 million a year.
They'd rather give it to charity. They'd rather give it to anything than the guy who's negative wins above replacement that's hurt and hasn't even been playing. But let's talk about the FanDuel pitchers now. And the FanDuel pitching conversation, it is so similar to the DraftKings pitching conversation because DeGrom's 23% owned, Skubal's 23%. Same deal over on FanDuel. They're pulling the same ownership. Matt Scherzer's the next most popular pitcher at 7% owned. And I find it really hard to make a case for Scherzer on FanDuel because he's $9,600. So Scherzer at $9,600 is the 3rd most popular pitcher on FanDuel. DeGrom's $9,900. He is $300 more expensive than Scherzer. You got Skubal is $10,800, so he's $1,200 more expensive. So I definitely would rather look elsewhere than Scherzer on the FanDuel side of things. For cash games, though, Skubal or DeGrom for you. Same ownership and, nearly identical. 23% versus 22.8%.
Yeah, I think for FanDuel purposes, you got to take into account the outs props. And I do obviously I've been playing more on FanDuel the last 2 weeks. And so it just was kind of a fluke situation. They ended up having the overlay day. And I was like, hey, I'll jam over there. It's been going all right. But this is the one thing that I wanted to point out, the difference between the two sites. Jacob deGrom has a 15.5 outs prop juiced towards the over at just -125. So for context, you're basically putting his baseline at 16.5 even money. You're putting his baseline at 17.5 around plus 130, plus 135, because it's usually, the way that I've learned about it, just as far as like certain pitch counts and certain guys, like when you're grading out the outs props, the 15.5, 16.5, 17.5, there's going to be gradual steps for it. But just to point out the market, his chances of getting that quality start are so much lower than Tarek Skubal's that I have to pick Skubal in cash.
I'm going to lean towards it. I don't think there's a wrong answer here, by the way. I think either of them are pretty reasonable. Like the cash game ownership, it's probably going to be like 45% for each of them or something like that. But I do think there's more security with DeGrom, just considering he's pitching at home against the Angels as compared to Skubal, who's pitching on the road in Sacramento. So that it's really just the matchup that makes me think there's a higher floor for DeGrom. But I don't think you go wrong in either way. If you have your cash game lineup built out and say you've got like $11,000 in salary on the table and just play Skubal instead of DeGrom, I think what makes most sense is build your hitters out first and just see what salary you've left for pitchers. And then if you fit Skubal, go for him. If you can't, go to DeGrom. As far as contrarian options go on FanDuel, I mean, you get Cam Schlittler at $1,200 cheaper than Max Scherzer and lower ownership over on FanDuel. So I like him from that perspective. Soriano is way different looking on FanDuel because he's $8,100 compared to $6,700. But if I want to be different on FanDuel, I think Cam Schlittler is still the guy to be looking at for FanDuel at $8,400. Anything else you like for contrarian purposes on FanDuel?
Yeah, we're looking at Emmett Sheehan again. The guy got up to 91 pitches the last two, got to the 6-inning mark. He has Cincinnati, which I think we can all agree is not the beacon of offense in the universe. That is for sure. So Emmett Sheehan, $7,400. So if you want to play Ohtani, Judge, Schwarber in any capacity on that site over there today, Corbin Carroll's going to have no ownership, even against Brandon Woodruff, potentially 4 or 5 innings of that. You got the Metsies, that aren't going to get any attention, but your main spend-ups being Judge, Ohtani, Schwarber, all in phenomenal spots, respectively. Schwarber just is a contrarian option against Senga, but Senga's been giving up more power to lefties this year. I think you got to play something cheaper, and so Emmett Sheehan's the guy I'm kind of gravitating towards. I'm playing 15 lineups on FanDuel today, and he is in 3 of them. So otherwise, it's very Skubal and then a little bit of DeGrom.
Any other talking points for your pitcher that we haven't hit on yet?
For FanDuel, Schlittler's pulling a lot more ownership on FanDuel. For what it's worth, I think I'm more inclined to play him on DK.
He's less owned on FanDuel.
He's like the third. I'm saying relative to everybody else, he's the third most popular pitcher over there. That's what I meant. Sorry if I misspoke, but like I'm saying that he's relative to the other options. You can only play one pitcher on FanDuel, but like he's pulling nearly 10% over there. That's not going to be my path. I'm going to play him on DK a little bit more, and FanDuel very reliant upon Skubal. I do have one lineup with Christopher Sanchez as well, for what it's worth. Shout out my outs goat.
By the way, there was an ownership update, so I just refreshed, and it has changed a little bit. So Schlittler is now more popular than Scherzer on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, his ownership has gone up to 14%. So he has become a little bit more popular in the last update. I still like him, but he's not a contrarian option in the same way as he was, say, 15 minutes ago.
Go Johan Oviedo, go team. What could possibly go wrong?
I'll give you guys an update on the ownership on DraftKings and FanDuel now that's refreshed, by the way. Skubal on DraftKings is now 40% owned. You got DeGrom at 36%. So 2% ownership went from DeGrom to Skubal there. Schlittler now up to 14%. Woodruff is 11% now. Everything else pretty much the same over on DraftKings. For FanDuel, Skubal is now 24%. DeGrom is 20%. Schlittler's 9%. Then you got Scherzer at 7%. Sheehan at 5%. Soriano at 5%. Then everybody else sub 5%. So that's the update that we have for the FanDuel side of things there. And now let's talk some stacks, Eric. And also, if you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel. It takes a half second of your time and helps us a whole bunch in the overlord that is the social media algorithms, which really controls our fate more than I would like to admit, Eric. But it kind of does, because one day YouTube could just say, you know what? Nobody's liking this video anymore. We're going to stop telling people to go watch it. And that's a thing that could happen one day. So like the video, that does help us out a good amount. So here's what we're looking at for stack ownerships, Eric. And I'm also going to refresh this because it stands to reason that if the pitcher ownership was refreshed, probably the same goes for the hitter ownership. And here's what we've got. The Yankees are 13% owned against Brad Lord. The Tigers are 10.5% owned against JT Ginn. The Royals are 9% owned against Shane Smith. And then the ownership gets pretty flat behind that. So amongst the chalky offenses, Yankees, Tigers, Royals, you guys will see that in our data, Yankees showing up in 24% of lineups for me here as a 5-man stack. So our data is liking the Yankees more than these other chalk teams. Do you like the Yankees more than the 3 chalk teams, or do you prefer the Tigers or the Royals to the Yankees?
It's hard not to like the Yankees today. If you're just picking like one stack to rule them all, Brad Lord, it hasn't been egregious, but he has a 175 ISO, 203 expected ISO against lefties. He strikes them out at a higher clip, but like these are not your average everyday lefties. Grisham with a 272 expected ISO, Ben Rice 295 expected ISO against righties, Aaron Judge 363 from the right side of the plate, Bellinger 173 expected ISO, Jazz Chisholm 327 expected ISO against righties and 22 homers with a 17.5-degree launch angle. It is just a really tough spot to be the Lord of the dance or to be Brad Lord in this spot. Neither are going to be having that much fun on the dance floor. So I think there's a lot of home run upside. We've seen that how many times with the Yankees when they're at full strength, when they're not dinged up. And this is probably the first time in a while. I don't know if people pay attention to this stuff as much as they should, but over the course of the last 2 weeks, the wind's been blowing in at Yankee Stadium for almost every single home game. It is out 10 miles per hour today. It is a very different park factor than what we've had in a couple of recent series. And I do mean just about every single game wind's been blowing in. I can't remember seeing wind blowing out in Yankee Stadium. It's mitigated to some extent there, but it does not hurt. I will tell you that much.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you and the Sims, as well as the Yankees being the chalky stack that we should be on for today. And if you look at the lineup top to bottom from the Sims here, overweight to everybody in this lineup. So the ones that are showing up most frequently, Aaron Judge in about a third of lineups, then Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt, each in just over 20% of lineups, Jose Caballero and Jazz Chisholm showing up in just under 20% of lineups. And then in the mid-teens, you got Ryan McMahon, Jason Dominguez, Trent Grisham, Cody Bellinger at 12%, the only hitter who's not at least 13% on the Yankees lineup. But either way, I mean, you're looking at a Yankees team who, while it is the most popular team on the slate, Eric, it's Ben Rice is 13% owned, Judge is 15%. Everybody else is single-digit owned. It's not like this is a overwhelmingly chalk stack. I think it might be a little bit different for single entry fields, but for large field tournaments, it's not like these guys are 30% owned or anything.
No, and look at this. I mean, we're getting well over the field to Judge, well over the field to Rice, well over the field to Goldie, well over the field to Caballero, who I think is probably one of the more underrated fantasy assets. I mean, just imagine Chandler Simpson batting ninth and then have a guy who actually has power and actually can do some stuff from time to time. I'm not saying he has power relative to the average major leaguer, but we're talking about the guy, I think he's second in stolen bases or third in stolen bases this year. It's basically Simpson, De La Cruz, and then Caballero, who continues to just impress from a fantasy perspective. I think on FanDuel, especially, he's one of the sneakier guys that you could potentially throw into those Yankee stacks. So I definitely, Caballero has 4 or 5 30-plus fantasy games. You don't see that very often from the 9-hole.
Yeah, especially a guy who they kind of traded for just because Volpe was struggling on defense. And like, here's the utility guy who could play defense in the late games instead of Anthony Volpe. And his first game with the Yankees, he committed an error that lost him the game. And then he has since become a power hitter out of nowhere. Jose Caballero, I think multiple multi-homer games, if I remember correctly. So Caballero at $3,400, usually not somebody we think of as a big bat and somebody who's typically at the bottom of the Yankees lineup, but still, we got some information from EMAC in here as well. EMAC saying that Caballero is first in stolen bases with 6 there since joining the Yankees. So a little bit of speed upside for Caballero to go along with the fact that he's been able to take advantage of some of the hitter-friendly conditions, whether it be the short porch in right field at Yankee Stadium or getting to play some games in his old ballpark, George Steinbrenner Field, where he also had that multi-homer game recently. Let's talk about some of the other stacks on the slate and single entry to be more specific. So if we're looking at single entry, Eric, where I think the Yankees are likely going to be more popular, Do you still want to be playing him in those tournaments, or is there a lower owned stack you like for small field?
I mean, there's a part of me that does want to roll out the Athletics because of this ballpark, because of how good the Athletics are. You get some salary savings in a Colby Thomas. You get, obviously the big boppers at the top of the lineup who, routinely are looking some of the shortest odds on the home run boards. Not today against Skubal, but we've seen a couple of issues with Skubal lately. Hasn't been completely long ball immune. That's kind of been the main thing. Fly ball, it's showing up. There's a part of me that wants to. I don't think I can do it, Captain. I don't have enough power, but I do think that if you're just looking at the leverage game, my Minnesota Twins against Max Scherzer make a ton of sense on DraftKings. And you get Cody Clemens and Matt Wallner. They haven't been in the lineup together like at all lately. It's insane watching some of these games. It's like we're running out Keishel at second instead of Cody Clemens, and then Wallner ends up in. And then it's like, oh, we'll play, we'll DH here and do this. And it's just been really, really weird. There's a lot of power at the top of that lineup for a fly ball Max Scherzer, and Max Scherzer's pulling the third most ownership on DK at the moment. So I think I'm going to end up rolling out my Twins as a homer in single entry, but I'm not sure what your team is or where you're looking. So that always is something I factor in at the end of this.
Yeah. So as far as the Yankees go, I think they might be a little bit more steamed up in single entry. So my preference is to look elsewhere for single entry. With that said, I did just get another refresh here where I refreshed ownership. We've now got the Yankees 10% owned on DraftKings. That's a little bit less popular than what they were earlier. And now the Tigers are 8% owned. The Royals are 8% owned. So it's flattened out even a little bit more over the course of the last few minutes on the latest update. I think on FanDuel still they're looking pretty popular over there. But looking at a team that is not going to be the Yankees in single entry for today, let's see. What other direction do we potentially want to be going here? I do have one spot in mind here, Eric. It's a guy who we have stacked against with, I've had mixed results stacking against him. Some of our recent stacking efforts against him have gone poorly. Do you have a guess who it is that I'm talking about stacking against?
If I had to guess, out of everybody that you've got up there, the guy that we're going to stack against that it just has not gone well is Erod.
Yeah. So most notably, there was the one star he pitched in Coors Field. He was popular. We went and tried to get leverage stacking against him, and he just absolutely dominated the hapless Rockies that night. But Erod still for the year is a 5.4 ERA, a 4.27 expected ERA, 4.69 FIP. Doesn't generate a ton of strikeouts at this point in his career, 21%. Earlier in his career, this was a guy who was like a 26 to 27% strikeout pitcher. And then it's a tough matchup for him against the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't know. You're getting the Brewers at pretty low ownership here. If people are spending up for an offense, they're generally gravitating towards the Yankees. I think this is a decent spot to get to the Brewers at just 5% ownership, Eric.
Rick and Morty, you son of a bitch, I'm in. Like, that sounds more fun than stacking up my Twins. I mean, the Twins were kind of the default purely as the going up against Scherzer for leverage. Yeah, Erod sucks. I hate Erod. This guy has always pitched over his head. We can only bring it up so many times in our lives, but
no, the inverse, where he is a guy who typically has worse results than his underlying numbers. So for his career, he's got a 4.2 ERA, but a 3.9 FIP. And this year, it's the same sort of deal where he's got a 5.4 ERA, but a 4.27 expected ERA, 4.69 FIP. But even though those underlying numbers look better than his actual ERA, that's just been the case for his entire career. So I kind of take some of the underlying numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt. Like he's got a 310 career BABIP. He's got a 12% home run to fly ball rate. He's just always performed worse than what his underlying numbers are.
That is what I meant. But yes, I explained it poorly yet again. We finish each other's
orgasms.
That's what I was gonna say.
Oh yeah, all right. Yeah, we are on the same page after all that. All right, we're back together. Tip to tip. So as far as leverage stacks goes, I know you had mentioned the A's against Skubal as a potential consideration. I'm not in love with going to the A's or the Angels for tonight. They are the two lowest owned teams on the entire slate. And then there isn't really meaningful leverage anywhere else because no other pitcher is more than 20% owned. So I don't know. I'm not super inclined to want to stack in Skubal or DeGrom, so I don't see a clear leverage spot for me for today. Are there any other really low-owned stacks that stand out to you? By the way, also just to let you guys know, if you look at the ownership from the Sims here, 4 teams that showed up in a double-digit amount of lineups. The Yankees, the Brewers were another one, the Rangers, and then the Pirates. So what else stands out to you, if anything?
I really like the Kansas City Royals. They're now pulling a little bit more ownership than what they were earlier in the day, it would appear. It's basically flat in terms of leverage that you're getting there. But the main point being Bobby Witt Jr., whatever version of Vinny Pasquantino has been showing up in the month of August, the guy is over a 400 ISO in the month of August. I mean, this is getting a little ridiculous, Vinny Pasquantino. I mean, what in the world? I was giving him shit about how he could never hit homers. It's like, man, Vinny Pasquantino, if only you could find some utility at first. Well, no, this has just been berserk. And I know it's a hot streak, whatever else, but Shane Smith is not very good. And you have behind him Miguel Garcia, stolen base upside and just continually doing everything correctly in his life. Sal Perez is really, really good. This is a Kansas City team that has just been putting up a ton of runs and hasn't necessarily been kind of encapsulated here by the market. I will say one guy that always freaks me out, especially with the change of scenery, you're seeing the Mike Yastrzemski to Randall Grichuk thing take over whenever there's a lefty who comes out. So if I'm playing single entry and if I'm looking at, or some smaller field MLB stuff here, in large field, I don't put too much consideration into it, but like, I don't love the idea of Mike Yastrzemski in some of those lineups purely because the White Sox, you look at the pen, they have enough there to make it kind of a little bit uncomfortable as far as like what it is that you're potentially getting with Isert, with Tyler Gilbert, and then Tyler Alexander, who always shows up whenever they're getting completely bludgeoned, but it'll get Mike Yastrzemski off the field, which is not fun getting 3 at-bats of him.
If you need to go really cheap to save salary, in that kind of sense, is there anything that stands out to you? Are there any really cheap stacks do you like where there's hitters that either are reasonable one-offs or just a cheap stack that you like maybe to go to Skubal and DeGrom in the same lineup? I've one in mind.
Okay. Well, you started off. I'll come second.
Just because they're absurdly cheap. Also, they show up in the Sims here, the Pittsburgh Pirates. McGreevy's numbers for the year, he's got a 4.42 ERA, a 4.6 expected ERA. He doesn't get strikeouts at all. His strikeout rate is 14% this season. So a guy who has the ball put in play against him a ton, against a team that's this cheap. Like, let's look at some of the hitter pricing for the Pirates who are showing up in the Sims. All right, we've got for Pittsburgh. And look, all of these hitters are the most popular hitter that we have in the lineup is 4.3% owned. Ronnie Simon at $2,100 with second base outfield eligibility. Brian Reynolds is $4,500. The next most expensive hitter you've got Peguero is $3,400, $3,200, $2,100, $3,500, $2,500, $3,000. It's a very, very cheap offense. And I don't hate the matchup against McGreevy either. So if you want to play both of the stud pitchers, you can go to the Pirates as a secondary stack. You can make a 5-man stack of them, play whoever you want as the other 3 options. This is a team just absurdly cheap considering what the matchup is.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice shout out. I will say there's a ton of liquidity on Novig right now too, to try to get people to bite on under Spencer Horwitz and under, who was the other guy that I saw. There were just a couple where I was like, wait, how much is getting put down? This guy had like $8,000 posted on Spencer Horwitz under a hit at like minus 190 or plus 190, I guess, if it would be like the action that he was trying to sell to the plus 190 side. Absurd, absolute absurd stuff. I'm not sure if that's still hung up there at the moment, but again, that's betting. That's a little bit different, but this is price, probability, and salary being added to the mix. Tommy Pham over on FanDuel was somebody who was showing up for me a little bit earlier. Jack Sawinski, he's just been completely lost at the plate. And Ronnie Simon is definitely my least favorite guy to watch hit a baseball ever, mainly because he doesn't hit a baseball whenever I roster him. But middle of that lineup overall, definitely something that I could entertain against McGreevy.
Anything else you want to talk about DraftKings stacks? If not, we'll look at the FanDuel stacks really quickly, and then we'll build a couple lineups if we're doing our home run picks.
Yeah, let's do FanDuel because there are some considerable differences in ownership when you have Judge and Ohtani accessible on FanDuel.
Yeah, so Yankees now 13% owned on FanDuel. The Tigers are 11% owned. Every other team is single digit owned. So are there any stacks that look way different to you on FanDuel compared to how they look to you on DraftKings?
So, I mean, when you say way different, we don't have like a Coors Field today. We don't have like anything like that, but I'm playing both sites. I'm playing, about the same on both sites for today. The main thing is the Tigers. They're not as popular as they should be on FanDuel. And so that's going to be where I kind of ramp up Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson. We don't have that lineup either. As of me saying this right now, I'm sure I'm going to go in and see my spreadsheet. Nope, we still don't. I love that. Obviously, we know those main pieces, but Cole Keith is a big question mark, I think. You could get really low ownership. I'm seeing some sites that don't have him in right now. He was sick yesterday and got scratched. And so I think you could get some sneaky upside. Like if you get Wensiel Perez instead of like batting 6th or 7th, where he's kind of been, Wensiel Perez led off yesterday. That's like cash consideration type stuff. FanDuel on DK as well. But like, I really like the Tigers on FanDuel, and their prices are just ridiculous. 3,600 for Riley Green, $3K for Kerry Carpenter. What are we actually doing with our lives over on FanDuel for that? So like, Tigers are unavoidable, I find, on FanDuel.
Yeah, so for me, looking on the FanDuel side of things, a team that is a little bit more affordable and actually speaks to a pitcher who you brought up being terrible earlier in the show, Eric. You get a 4% owned Padres team that's modestly priced against Bryce Miller. Bryce Miller, once again, to reiterate his numbers overall for the year, 5.87 ERA, 5.63 expected ERA. His fastball velocity down about a half mile per hour this year. His strikeout rate has gone from 24.5% last year to 18% this year. I think a contrarian Padres team is worth consideration on FanDuel.
I definitely agree with that. One thing I will throw out there, Gavin Sheets. I know he's got upside. I know everything else there. I have been staring at his unders all day long, mainly because Bryce Miller, he got to 85 pitches last time out, but that was his first outing in forever. If they're going to limit him to like 5 innings of work, no matter what, like there's a chance that you get pinch hit for very, very early there for like a Gavin Sheets. I don't think it'll happen with Ryan O'Hearn. He's been so good for them right out of the gate. Lefties, righties hasn't really mattered as much. I do think Gavin Sheets is somebody who can be a little bit more ripped off the field immediately and put somebody else in kind of a situation. But I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. But like for FanDuel, especially like as I was putting together some San Diego stacks, he's the one guy that I'm worried about. There's definitely upside. If he gets to face Miller 3 times, you're probably in good shape no matter what. And you can't really complain too much. But he does have a lot of pinch hit ups. Well, downside, it would be downside.
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 I know what you meant. I know what you meant. So I'm loading up the
I don't even know if I knew
here, and we'll build a DraftKings lineup, we'll build a FanDuel lineup. Yeah. I always know. I got your back in more ways than one. So on the DraftKings slate, Eric, I'll let you lead off here. Which team is it that you want to build a DraftKings stack around?
Yankees, highest owned team for me.
All right, let's go to the Yankees. So the Yankees, let's sort by the projections here. And we've got Judge, 16% owned now. We've got Ben Rice, 13% owned. Everybody else single digit owned on the Yankees. Who do you want to start the stack around?
Well, I mean, we just got done jerking him off. So Jose Caballero, let's go.
Right.
Second base. You can play him second base outfield.
Oh, here
we're going to want to play him second base.
Yeah, so we'll plug Caballero into second base. We'll also go with Judge in the outfield, and then Ben Rice, who we would prefer to the catcher spot, to first base there. And now I will go to, let's see, I'm going to plug in Trent Grisham at 4,100. So Eric, fill us out here. We've got the 9-hitter, the 1-hitter, the 2-hitter, the 3-hitter. Do you want to go to Bellinger's the 4-hitter and get the stack all the way through with guys hitting back to back to back to back to back, or is there a different guy you want to plug in from the Yankees?
Kind of torn. Natalie Imbruglia style. I'm all out of faith. This is how I feel. we blocked Jazz out because we went Caballero second, but yeah, let's go Bellinger. Belly.
Okay. So we'll go to Bellinger. Now let's complete the sim and see who shows up or complete the lineup with the optimizer and see who shows up. It gave us, all right, DeGrom and Soriano. So we had to go to Soriano in that lineup to make the salaries work. And then the other hitters who were in here, Luis Ariz, we got a Sagisi at $2,300, and then Bobby Witt paying up for him at shortstop at $5,800. Let's run the sim and see how this lineup looks. Looking good. 69% sim ROI. Nice. Looking great. All right, so we got a good-looking DraftKings lineup there. Now on the FanDuel side of things, let's see. What do I want to go to on FanDuel? Let's go Padres. Let's try a Padres stack and see how this ends up looking. All right, so for the Padres, Eric, I'm going to plug in Tatis. I'll plug in Machado. Who are the other two Padres we want to go to? Are you busy over there?
Oh, yeah, no. So I had a lot of money on Michael Harris to steal a base, and he just stole a base immediately against Edward Cabrera. So we were celebrating in the Lindy and Friends Discord already.
Nice.
Bang,
Nice.
bang, bang. Yeah, let's go to Ryan O'Hearn. He is good at baseballs.
Okay, so plug O'Hearn in. Here he is. All right, so we'll go to O'Hearn, and then I'll plug Ariz in here as well. All right, so we've got the top 4 hitters in the lineup. Very creative of us. And now let's use the optimizer to complete the lineup. We got DeGrom in as the pitcher, and then Bobby Witt at shortstop again, Kerry Carpenter, Wenzel Perez, and then Lars Nootbaar. So we did get a secondary 2-man stack of the Detroit Tigers. And I'll run the sim here. While I am doing it, OMG Lols asked the question here, tell me more about this Discord. Absolutely. So if you guys, lineup looks good, by the way, 38.5% sim ROI. If you guys want to sign up for Eric's Discord, you can head on over to tails.bet, and you can find Eric's Discord there to sign up for. You can also tail myself for free over on Tails. I usually post anywhere from like 2 to 5 bets per day that are 100% totally free. Just follow me on Tails. Once again, URL, just type in tails.bet into your search bar at the top. That'll bring you over there, and you can find Eric there. Lofty is going to be doing a bunch of free NFL bets. Josh is going to be posting free cheat sheets there for DFS. Then you could also subscribe to other guys' packages like Matt Gajeski doing college football stuff this year. You got Ben Raza. You know, everybody on the team in some way is putting stuff up over at Tails. So MG Lows, just go to tails.bet if you want more information on that. Eric, any other thoughts on this lineup here? If not, want to do our home run picks?
I mean, it's like everything I like. Luis Ariz is always the toughest for me from a fantasy perspective because, you know, it's just you're asking for 3 hits to get to the same thing as somebody finding a hit, but he does it with such frequency that it's basically like somebody who's going to hit a home run and things of that nature. You just got to have Tatis come along for the ride a lot of the time, but now that we have him in that lineup, I feel much better about it. I don't like playing Luis Ariz as much as a one-off, purely because I feel like a lot of his value is attached to Tatis being on base.
All right. So with that in mind, guys, it is time for homers. I'm going to give out a homer bet. Eric's going to give out a homer bet. We got the Dong of the Day graphic on the screen, and then we're going to read off your guys' bets or picks overall for DFS from chat. So whoever you think is going to hit a home run today, let us know in the YouTube comments, and I'll start reading some of those off. I also want to double check to make sure there weren't any outstanding questions that we missed in the Discord channel, which, Einstein may ask thoughts on the Brewers. We talked about the Brewers. That was a team that I like. That was actually my single entry team that I picked there. So I like them a ton as a contrarian team, the Brewers for today. Let's go ahead and do our home run picks. Eric, who are you taking to go yard tonight?
All right. Well, it's hard for me not to look at Kerry Carpenter. 3K on FanDuel. He's in just about everything that I'm doing over there. He's going to be popular. He's going to be very, very popular there. But I don't care. I have his break even like inside of plus 250 in this tiny little league ballpark. JT Ginn on the mound. Kerry Carpenter, he kept me from like almost a Tiger sweep yesterday. He is coming back with vengeance today for me. Kerry Carpenter, pretty chalky, but I don't give a shit. Goes yard for us.
I'm going to pick a home run, and I'm going to say it's a leadoff homer for Trent Grisham today. I'm going with Trent Grisham to homer for the Yankees tonight. Let's see what we have from YouTube chat. We've got Vincent Coles going with Manny Machado. We've got Larry C. I don't know if he's just sharing information with us or it's his home run pick, but he'd say Keith leading off. So he's either letting us know that Cole Keith is leading off or he's picking, or maybe even both. Maybe he thinks, well, I mean, if it's possible. It's possible. By the way, also, Corey Harris, the higher the ROI, the better. Yes. The higher the ROI, the better. Let's see what else we have here. Ryan Stubbs going with Christian Yelich. Sotex is going with Trey Sweeney. We've got Walton Horton going with Vincent. It says Vince Robles. We've got Obi-Wan going with Triolo. We've got Pierre going Riley Green. We've got J-Rod from Alex. By the way, Julio Rodriguez. Do people actually call him J-Rod? I feel like I don't hear that very often.
They do. Yeah, I've never heard it on a telecast, but I've definitely seen it written out J-Rod everywhere on X before. Usually when he hits like 3 home runs in a row.
He has he's had a much better second half of the season than first half of the year for sure. Malucar is going with Teoscar Hernandez. Barnaby O'Toole has Andrew Vaughn. We've got Tom Olson saying Matt Olson, even though going to is live and he's 0 for 1. Good Greens is going with Fernando Tatis. We've got Ben Rice from EMAC. Harlock is going with Starling Marte. We've got NY Steel going Tommy Pham. Marquee Sports also going with Triolo. I can't remember a time that somebody like Triolo was picked multiple times. Yeah, Jeff Williams has got Andrew Vaughn. We've got Danny Chen is going with Anthony Rooker and Kerry Carpenter. Aaron Hines has got Kyle Schwarber. Patrick Maduke is going with Triolo for 2 homers today. Big Kev has got Caleb Durbin. We've got Durbin. We've got Van Dam NYC saying Wood and Abrams for both, double dongs for both of them. All right. Mr. Lirat is going with Jason Dominguez. Duckman has got Ryan McMahon. Rob Live also has got Ryan McMahon. Fact 74 is going with Kerry Carpenter. Rob Live also has thrown Ben Rice into the mix. CPA Joe K has got Jock Peterson. Yastrzemski from Max Video. Riley Green from Rob Live has made like 10 different home run picks in here. Arcathels has got Edward Julian. We've got Dirt McGirt going with Jared Triolo. We've got Manny Machado from King Mana. We've got Cody Bellinger from Nicholas Barrett. Ben Rice from Greg Turpinseed. Luis Robert from Robert Grease. And that is going to do it for us today, guys. And I'm off to dinner with my dad. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enjoy the slate. Eric and I will see you guys back here tomorrow. Good night.